I know we hate the phrase uncertain times, but here we are again in uncertain times. We have a lot of folks that are living paycheck to paycheck, and not just paycheck to paycheck, but we're finding that the cost of living is going up.
Part of the problem very well may be that you are not making enough money. And there's not enough time in the day for someone to work several jobs. But if you find yourself in that situation, sometimes it's always good to start with evaluating what you're spending, what's going out, and how much money is coming in, and what needs to be adjusted. A lot of times it is you need to make more money, but other times it could be you're just paying for a lot of other things that don't need to be paid for, and you should cut out some of those subscriptions. You should take that reevaluation, but the first step will always be to look at where your money is going.
Hello and welcome back to the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. I'm your host, Diana Barbadillo, and today we are joined by Mykail James. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Mykail is a financial educator, speaker, and content creator dedicated to helping young professionals take control of their finances. Known as the Bougie Budgeter, she turned her own financial missteps into an MBA and then later a platform for teaching budgeting, debt relief, and wealth building. So, your journey into financial education began after a personal experience. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I graduated. I felt like I did everything the right way. Went to college, got the good job, and then spent all my money.
Sounds familiar.
You know? And so I was like, this just cannot be the way. Like, there has to be something else missing. And I realized that people weren't having real conversations about money. And a lot of the conversations only revolved around taking care of kids or buying a house. And I was 23.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not doing either one of those things. I want to learn how to safely start investing my money, but have a good time while doing it.
Okay. So you talk a lot about financial responsibility and living your life are possible. So what sort of mind shifts did you have to make to really achieve that balance?
The first thing I had to understand is the difference between being financially responsible and being financially educated. You can know all the right things. You can have all of the terminology. I went to business school, but you have to actually practice those things to be financially responsible. And it really took small things. It wasn't everything changed all at once. It was being okay with those small wins to eventually turn into big things.
What are some examples of small wins?
One of my favorite examples was I bought my first house. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. I bought my first house, but it took me 6 years to save that money. And it wasn't like I had parents that were giving me $10,000 for a down payment. It wasn't like I'm insanely wealthy, but for a Black woman to be able to afford a home by herself, that's a huge feat. That was something that was really special to me and something that my grandmother loved about wanting her grandchildren to have their own houses and to own and have ownership. So, but it wasn't like it happened overnight. It wasn't like I just automatically fell into $20,000 to put into a house. I had to save over time.
How did you save over time?
I utilized things like a 401k that my job offered. It was also about budgeting, being financially responsible, and, saying no to some things. Opportunity costs. Maybe I won't get to go to every trip this year, but maybe I'll just take 1 or 2 trips instead of all 5. So I can save a little bit extra and create the life that I'm looking forward to in the future, too.
Got it. And so we talk a lot about saving money. But when you talk about wealth, it goes beyond that, right? You're talking about long-term financial responsibility.
Yeah.
How does one get started? What is the difference between saving and building wealth?
You have to start with making the decision to look forward, right? A lot of times we want to just do what's fun for right now, or we want those things right now. But I'm envisioning the beautiful house and the where I'm going to be
that you now own.
Yeah. Well, and when I'm 45, what that life is going to look like. Like, I know that my life is so much longer than just my 20s. It's so much more than just where I am right now. And it's about enjoying what I have for right now, but also working towards that vision that I have for myself in the future. And I think we got to start daydreaming a little bit more and researching on how much it will cost us to get the things that we want and what steps do we need to take. Everyone's steps are going to be different because everybody wants different things.
So today we're at the Know Your Rights camp. We have a lot of youth, right? So we're talking even younger than us. What would you say to young folks who are probably having these discussions about finances, maybe for the first time?
I love talking to younger people, younger generations, because it's really the next step. And I just wrote a book for teens in their personal finance, so I'm super excited about that. And I want to always instill that, number one, finding a trusted adult is something that you really need to have. And maybe that looks like an aunt or an uncle. I am an auntie, and I make sure that my nieces and nephews are financially secure and have those conversations. But finding a trusted adult to talk about money, to start looking at what your first job will look like, researching all the things that it takes to get to that career that you're looking for, asking people about their careers, like having those conversations when you're young really impacts you over your lifetime.
Tell me about this book.
Right. So I'm super excited. I co-authored a book called Personal Finance for Teens, for Dummies, under the For Dummies brand. And it is all about how teenagers can start having those money conversations, thinking about maybe buying their first car or what compound interest is and how they can start investing even when they're still in their teenage years. Because the longer your money is invested, the more you start practicing these really good financial habits, the more money you'll have when you hit your 20s, when you hit your 30s, then that's when you become a millionaire.
So it sounds like it's all about practice.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the barriers for young folks who now they're having the conversation, but there are some systemic barriers, there are some generational barriers. What is your advice for them to overcome these obstacles?
Number one, be educated and understand that there are barriers. There are rules and laws that were put in place to prevent Black people and other people to earn wealth in this country. And that's just the reality of it. But I will also say that when you learn the rules of the game, you can always manipulate them and you can use those to your advantage. So learning the fundamental practices of money, how money is multiplied, how compound interest works, what are banks for, what are loans, all of those things put together can create something really special for your financial future.
I have a feeling that we're going to have some youth that might be actually taking this conversation back to their parents, maybe even their grandparents. Do you have any tips for sort of broaching this subject in an intergenerational way?
Yeah, I talk about money with my mom all the time. My mom was actually the person who taught me the most about money. She is and will always be the purse holder in our family. But starting with like understanding if they are a trusted adult. So when you're having conversations with someone that you trust, money is very sensitive. So being open about that. And I think that the other thing that I want parents to understand or trusted adults to understand is that you have to let your kids make mistakes. No one's going to be perfect with money, but the special thing about money is that you can lose it all and gain it back again. You know, there are so many ways that you can recoup and re-up from any mistakes that you've made. And mistakes are natural. You know, we learn so much from mistakes or things that we thought we could have done. You make a mistake and you find out not to do it again. So I think that's one of the major things is let them spend money, let them understand what it takes to earn money, and also talk about being protected about money, especially cybersecurity. Our young kids are way more susceptible to online financial scams. even more susceptible than like boomers and elderly people because
interesting.
we're chronically online. They're sharing so much information all the time and not realizing that hackers and scammers are not only interested in the dollars in your bank account, but they're also interested in your personal information and selling your personal data. Like those things are really important to protect. And so we also need to be very, very critical about cybersecurity when it comes to our finances as well.
That's a really good point, and I think it's interesting because we spend so much time thinking that we know the risks, and maybe we don't. So we obviously are here in St. Louis. We're talking to a lot of youth, and we're talking to a lot of youth from a lot of, underrepresented communities. So what do you think they should be able to take away from this camp?
I think they should take away from this camp every small thing counts. You don't have to be a billionaire to affect change. You don't have to be a billionaire to change the generational trajectory of your family. You can start with small steps. You can start with being knowledgeable, learning about different industries and how you want to make money, learning how to reinvest into your community and in yourself and in your education. And money makes all of those things possible.
Got it. So a lot of folks, maybe even some grown folks listening, are probably going to want to revisit their financial literacy journey. What is the starting point for some people? You talked about small wins. You talked about reinvesting in the community. So what do you think is an important principle to focus on to keep you going when you feel like, I'm not sure I'm doing this right?
Daydreaming and understanding what the bigger picture is. Again, everyone doesn't want the same life. So understanding how much it costs for that dream life. And maybe your dream life only costs $200,000 and maybe my dream life costs $1 million, but you don't know where you need to start until you actually start. And for my adults, just bite the bullet. It's all right. Your past money mistakes are your past and they don't define where you can go in the future. 10 years is still a lot of time. Even if you're in your 30s, you have time to fix those mistakes and you have time to make things better.
So what happens if someone can't quite find a trusted adult to speak to about finances?
If you don't have a trusted adult, there are so many resources that you can start to self-educate with. Unfortunately, if you are under the age of 18, things like opening a bank account or starting an investment brokerage account are not possible without an adult. So that is a little tricky. But in that same instance, starting those conversations and looking into your community to find someone that is trusted where you can start talking about those financial topics.
And do you think it could be something where folks who are under 18, maybe they research until they're ready to be their own trusted adult?
Yeah, and if you don't have a trusted adult to actually open a bank account, you'll have to save the cash, unfortunately, by yourself just until you have those resources or until you are of age to open those bank accounts by yourself.
Got it. I know we hate the phrase uncertain times, but here we are again in uncertain times. We have a lot of folks that are living paycheck to paycheck, and not just paycheck to paycheck, but we're finding that the cost of living is going up. Do you have any advice or any tips for folks who are in that situation to be able to look ahead and not just paycheck to paycheck?
There are a couple things. Number one, you cannot budget your way out of poverty. And I like to make that distinction and be very clear that I am about financial education and I'm also about being very real. It doesn't matter. I can't give you budgeting strategies to budget your way out of poverty. Part of the problem very well may be that you are not making enough money. And there's not enough time in the day for someone to work several jobs. But if you find yourself in that situation, sometimes it's always good to start with evaluating what you're spending, what's going out, and how much money is coming in, and what needs to be adjusted. A lot of times it is you need to make more money, but other times it could be you're just paying for a lot of other things that don't need to be paid for, and you should cut out some of those subscriptions. You should take that reevaluation, but the first step will always be to look at where your money is going. And it's really important to understand that part of inflation and the finances are coming from being involved in politics, being involved in what's going on, and taking the time to understand where your money is going and what politicians are doing, what new laws are being passed. All of those things impact you, and you have to be informed about that. That all plays a part into your everyday finances and your dollar.
So dream big, budget, but pay attention to.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think that's it. Much easier said than done.
Obviously, yeah. But it's a good guideline, I think, for folks to get started on their financial literacy journey.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So here's the thing. Everyone stumbles on this outro, and I will be joining the ranks of those who stumble. Okay, hold on. Let me read this really quick. Thank you, Mykail, for joining us for this version of the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. Follow us on all social media at Know Your Rights, blah, blah, blah. Your Rights Camp. Thank you, Mykail, for joining us for this episode of Know Your Rights Camp podcast. And thank you to our viewers for checking in. Follow us on all socials at Your Rights Camp. Check us out on YouTube at Know Your Rights Camp. And check us out online at knowyourrightscamp.org. Until next time.